Hello. Yes. So to speak on the microphone so everybody can hear me. Good afternoon, everybody. I hope you had coffee so you can stay awake for my lecture. As was said before, there were two lawyers speaking in the beginning. Now you have a banker, so it's all going downhill. And Rodo said that the Wall Street guy with Armani suit and the Porsche. I have only the old Wall Street guy part of this. I don't have the other Porsche and Armani, but we are going to try to continue with the subjects that were spoken here today, as we are going to talk about family ties and reincarnation, and basically the reincarnation process. Now, with all that we've been hearing about forgiveness, about being able to forgive ourselves, to forgive others, family is what comes to mind first, right? Because if we have problems in this life of relationship, most likely 99% of our problems are related to our families, to our relatives. Now, there are two types of family with these words. Oh, yes, you have to. Okay. There are two types of families that we normally have. Our eternal family, the spiritual families, the families that we have in the spiritual world, the families that that we form in the spiritual world throughout our existence, and the families that we have in our present existence, our blood family. This family that we have in this existence, it's normally composed partially from individuals from our spiritual family, and part from individuals that are not so dear to us, that are here to readjust, that we are here to make amends. And we learn a lot about self-forgiveness, about forgiving others, and that's what we have to exercise when we are dealing with our families from the physical realm. João de Angelis tells us that the family is always a blessing that God grants to the spirit on ascension in order to help it to exercise fraternity and understanding so that it can prepare those of a universal nature. So we know that we are here for a reason. We know that we are here to progress. We know that a very important part of this evolution, of this incarnation, is taking care of our personal relationships with our family and with our close ones. Now, let's talk a little bit about reincarnation, because how did we all come here? What is in the process of reincarnation? And we are going to go back to André Luiz once again. In the book Missionaries of the Light, there is a passage on chapters 12, 13, and 14 that deals with the reincarnation of Sigismund. And it is the most comprehensive explanation of the whole process of reincarnation that we find in André Luiz's books. And it's really worth reading and studying, because that's where we learn in detail how the process of reincarnation works in the spiritual world. So it's basically on the case of Sigismundo, who in a previous incarnation was reunited with Adelino and Raquel, the other two individuals of the story, that they were together, and in a fit of passion, Sigismundo killed Adelino, and Raquel became involved in prostitution, and they all came back to the spiritual world with heavy karmas. Adelino and Raquel are reincarnated and accepted after many, many years in the spiritual world. They accepted before reincarnating to receive Sigismundo as a son, so they can all overcome the differences and the hatred they had towards each other. André Luiz, as always, is accompanied by a mentor in the story, like in all books. In this book, the mentor name is Alexander. So, but what's happening is that they are already incarnated, Adelino and Raquel, they have a son, but when Sigismundo approached them in dream, Adelino repels him, and he refuses to forgive Sigismundo. Why? Because when we come back to the physical world, we forget about our past existences, we forget about what we are here to do. We have an intuition, but we don't have a full remembrance. And what we bring is those inner sentiments of love and hate that we don't understand really where they come from in this present life. It's imprinted in our conscience. So we don't know exactly how to deal with them. That's why sometimes we see people that we never met before in this present life, and we feel the sentiments of sympathy or antipathy, and we don't know how to explain. This is most likely related to our past lives, and we are reuniting with them again. So André Luiz becomes very interested in following the process of reincarnation. He never had the opportunity of following up close the process of reincarnation, and asks Alexander if he could follow the case. Alexander agrees with him, but tells him that before they start, it will be very important that he spend some time in the Institute of Reincarnation in the colony Nosular, where reincarnations are planned. And when they are going to this beautiful building, he sees a lot of people walking towards the building with guides. And Alexander explains that all of them have plans for their reincarnation, are different workers that work in the institute or are there to assist in the process of reincarnation. They are specialists in the biological process of reincarnation. In the design room, André Luiz becomes very surprised on how much work is spent in the process of reincarnation, and he asks if this is how all the reincarnation processes are worked. And at that time, the person who's helping him there, who is Manasses, tells him that not all cases of reincarnation go through this very labored work. That most cases follow the normal process that happens here also when we go back to the spiritual world. Most cases goes in a natural process. So most cases of reincarnation are just a process of going back to the physical world. There is always a team working in it, but there are some cases, the special cases, the cases where the spirits in the process of reincarnating deserve the assistance because of the good work they have done, either here in the physical world, but in the case of Sigismundo, in the spiritual world. He had worked for many years trying to correct the mistakes that he made in his last incarnation, and he merited the assistance of the spiritual benefactors. So they go through some cases that we don't have time to go over here that are very interesting, that you can read on chapter 12 of the book Missionaries of Light. Each one of them talking about their specific cases of reincarnation and what they need for their next incarnation. The case of a woman that doesn't want to come here with a beautiful body. The case of a man who wants to come here and have a defect on the leg. So these sufferings will help them not forget what they came here to do, and not to get distracted, because it's very easy for us to get distracted in during our lives and forget our true work, which is the spiritual evolution. André was very surprised to see that there were screens showing each part of the body and the whole work that was done in the construction, preparation of the new physical body. And he was surprised and he said how complex is the opportunity of being reborn. And so little he knew of how much work really involves the process of reincarnation in these special cases, like the case of Sigismundo. But all of us, all our process of reincarnation, there is a lot of work involved in giving us the best conditions for ourselves, for us to succeed in our physical existence. Now it's up to us to make good use of these attributes that we receive. We received everything we need. We are the ones that fail to achieve what we are supposed to achieve. And André Luiz learns that there are very few with what they call completers, which are the ones who fully fulfill their task on the physical existence, that most of us fail to achieve as much as 70% of what we were supposed to do in our incarnations. So let's try to reduce this percentage to 20, 30, or maybe 50%, okay? And we are already making progress. So they go to Adelino and Raquel's house, and inside the house they find Sigismundo suffering, in pain, struggling. And Alexandre asks him to compose himself, because you can imagine if the parents, or in this case the future father, is rejecting him, the fact that he struggles also, that he is not feeling well within himself, it's not going to help the process. So Alexandre asks him, do not disturb them, they are having dinner, so let's just get closer and see what's happening at dinner. At dinner what we have is Adelino very serious and without talking very much, and the wife Raquel trying to reach him, trying to touch him and with conversation, and he answers just very dry and with short phrases. Alexander says that in this way it would be very difficult to make Adelino change his disposition towards Sigismundo for the reincarnation. So he uses the 3-year-old son, who's my namesake, Joãozinho, to reach his father, to see if he can make a difference. And Joãozinho starts talking to his mother and asking his mother what's going on with his father, why he's so serious, why he's so angry, and the mother answers that he's worried about work, worried about external things, and then he appeals to the father if the father could come and pray with them at night, because he's 3 years old. He just learned the basic praying lessons, and he's very proud that he can pray and he can talk to God. And the father says after to Raquel, Adelino says that he's been having his nightmares, that there is someone that gets close to him. He doesn't understand exactly what this person wants from him, but he gets nightmares and he wakes up and he cannot sleep at night. So this is the sentiments that we have when we have those that we have antipathy, getting close to us, and we have these feelings of uncomfortable feelings, and especially when they come during our sleep, what we have is usually nightmares, right? And he said that he's struggling with these dreams, and he has forgotten to pray. He has completely forgotten, distracted with his material life, he has forgotten to pray. So he's telling Raquel that he should go back and pray, and he was going to come home earlier that night and pray with them. So he comes back, they are praying, and all the spirits, Joãozinho, when he prays, he asks for the angels to come and to help the family. And the angels in this case are our spiritual friends, Alexandre and André Luiz, and Raquel's grandmother, and other spirits that are there helping in this beautiful room illuminated with the sincere prayer from a 3-year-old kid. Because when you are a 3-year-old, you have all the innocence, and the innocence calls and enlightens the room and illuminates everybody around. So they go to sleep. Raquel is the first one to leave the body, and immediately as she leaves the body, she meets her grandmother, and she's very happy to see her grandmother. Interestingly enough, she doesn't see anybody else. She doesn't see Alexandre or André Luiz or any other. And André Luiz is very surprised, and he asks Alexandre, why doesn't she see us? And Alexandre answers, we see what we need to see. She doesn't need to see us. We are not here for her. We are here for the husband. And if she sees us, it can disturb her, because she can think we are angels. It can be overwhelming for her. So we're not here for her. We are here for the husband. She doesn't need to see us. We only see what we need to see. So she embraces her grandmother and stays there with her grandmother. Adelino comes out of his physical body, and immediately the only one he sees is Segismundo. And immediately he gets scared, he gets frightened, and he wants to go back to his physical body. You went through this when you are sleeping, and then you have these nightmares, and you want to rush back to your physical body to wake up, to get rid of the nightmare. That's more or less what Adelino was feeling there. But immediately when he starts trying to go back to his physical body, Alexandre makes himself visible to Adelino. Remember, the more evolved spirits can make themselves visible to the less evolved spirits. The less evolved spirits can only see the more evolved spirits if the more evolved spirits make themselves present. And we have the biggest example of that in our oldest presentation of Jesus appearing to Paul, right? Jesus made himself visible to Paul in spirit, and I can only imagine, as Haroldo said, the light must be, well, he became blind for a couple of weeks, right? So can you imagine what? Alexandre makes himself visible to Adelino and asks him, what's happening to you? Why you are suffering? And Adelino, what Adelino thinks is that an angel came to his rescue. Because he was suffering, he prayed, his son prayed, so an angel came to free him from his enemy. And he thinks, he say, I think this man wants to rob me of my life. Why does he think that? Because Sigismundo killed him in his previous incarnation. So of course he sees the man that killed him in his previous incarnation, and his first reaction is, this guy is going to kill me again. So he's going to kill me because he doesn't remember, not me again. He's going to kill me. So he's afraid. He wants to go back to the physical body. And Alexandre immediately tells him, what have you done with your notions of human sympathy? It is always very easy to love our friends, but we must realize that they represent work already accomplished in our process of evolution. So we go back to family. It's always easy to love the ones in our family that are close to us. It's always easy to forgive their mistakes. Now, the ones that are different from us in our family, that have different thoughts, that have different views, those are the ones that we are there to make peace with, to overcome our sentiments of hatred, of uneasiness. So Alexandre asks Adelino to overcome this feelings of hatred, to forgive this man that is trying to reach him. And we see here Sigismundo looking very ill, very humble. He doesn't look like someone that is going to kill anyone. So Sigismundo bows before Adelino, kisses his hand, and asks him for help. He says, "Forgive me, brother. The Lord will reward you for the good you have done to me." And Adelino immediately feels something different, feels the necessity, with the words of Alexander and the request from Sigismundo, he feels the necessity to forgive and to give this brother a chance. And immediately, all this negative energy that was surrounding him dissipates and disappears, and he is then ready to accept Sigismundo as a son. André Luiz, Alexandre tells that Adelino's forgiveness was sincere. The thick darkness of hatred has been dissipated. So, as they leave their home, André Luiz asks Alexandre, "But why do we have to go through all this? Aren't there enough spiritual workers and benefactors that can make this process work without all this work, without us having to be involved here and talking to the Father, to the Son?" And Alexandre explains that in some cases it's very important that you prepare the whole ambient as much as possible, involving those that are preparing for the task of the reincarnation, the parents, the children, so the results can be of a better nature. Because in most of the times when we go through this natural process, we come here with our main tasks, but it's very easy to forget and very easy to fall into the old patterns of loving or hating, of not forgiving ourselves, not forgiving our brothers and sisters. So the construction of the whole process was very important. And if we go back to what Luis Lima said, what was happening with Adelino is that his bitter thoughts were destroying the genetic substance, poisoning the chromatin within its seminal sac. Having changed his inner disposition, he will now on emit magnetic energies that will protect the elements for the lofty service of procreation. So what was happening here, talking in English, is that he was unable to get Raquel pregnant. Very simple. So he was contaminated with his negative energies, his ability to get his wife pregnant. And how many of us carry those negative energies within ourselves? And we talk here about pregnancy, but relating to all aspects of our lives, how much we poison ourselves and we poison others with our negative thoughts. But this was discussed before by the speakers, brilliant speakers before me, so I'm not going to go there. So now that everything is ready, Are we ready? No, not yet. Still a team of constructors will have to come and prepare the whole reincarnation per se, the physical aspect of the reincarnation. They were working on the spiritual aspect of the reincarnation. Now they are going to work on the physical aspect. And to work on the physical aspect, there is a team of constructors, a different team, that they are going to work in preparing our friends at Sigismundo's fields. So they were there already with Sigismundo and Herculano when André Luiz and Alexander came back sometime later, which was in the night that Raquel was going to get pregnant. So while Alexander is working with a team of constructors, André Luiz tried to accompany, didn't understand anything what was going on there. Alexander tells him he's not prepared to understand what was going on there, so tell him just find something else to do because there's nothing here for you right now. So he goes talk to Sigismundo, and he finds Sigismundo very sad. He can barely move. What's happening with Sigismundo here is that, of course, when the last moment comes, we think that we're not ready for it. So he's regretting asking for the opportunity of being reborn, of the opportunity of reincarnating. He's afraid he's going to fail again. He said that he was more upbeat, but then he's losing his energies, and he's afraid of not succeeding in this new incarnation. André Luiz tries to help him, to tell him to cheer, but it's only when Alexandre comes, of course, with the right words, telling Sigismundo to have recover his faith and restore his hope, because he can only hurt himself if he goes with these negative thoughts. And here we see why many of us are not aware of our process of reincarnation when we are in the spiritual world. Because if we start thinking on our future life, and we start thinking of all the problems we are going to face, of all the challenges we are going to have, we are going to poison ourselves with the thoughts that Luiz Lima told us. Our spiritual body can always also get poisoned with our thoughts. So we are going to harm our physical body. So Sigismundo is a different case. He's aware, he's following his reincarnation, but even though he understands the process and he's aware of what goes on there, he's failing to gather strength to follow up with the process. And what he says is that while he was in the spiritual world, he created a small project of assistance. And he built the project from nothing, and the project was working fine. And of course, he was afraid, he was leaving the project behind, how the project was going to continue without him. The preoccupations we have when we think that we create something that cannot go on without us. We give too much of importance to our work, and we think the world cannot live without us. So Sigismundo is worried, and Alexandre tells him, don't think about it. The good projects we do will continue to progress. People will follow up on our work. There will be always someone that continues the good projects, the projects that are important and that are working. So, that's one slide that I like very much. That shows that as Sigismundo starts losing his conscience, the perispiritual reduction starts. The perispiritual reduction, because what happens is, while he lived in the spiritual world, he acquired, his perispirit acquired matter, because the perispirit is matter, that belongs to the spiritual world. when he's in the process of reducing and becoming a baby, he's going to leave behind matter that belongs to the spiritual world. If you remember Luis Lima's presentation, the etheric double is our physical, it's part of the spirit, the very spirit that belongs to our physical body. So when we go back to the spiritual world, we leave the etherical double behind because it belongs to earth, it doesn't belong to the spiritual world. And the same thing happens when we are reincarnating. All the material of our spiritual body that belongs to the spiritual world stays there, and we bring only the part that is connected to our future physical body. So he's shrinking until he looks like a baby. And then there is his party of goodbye party, right? When we go back to the spiritual world, everybody here is crying, everybody there is partying. When we come back from the spiritual world, everybody here is happy, everybody there is crying. So these friends that were friends with Sigismundo for many years, they are there to say goodbye to Sigismundo. They are there to see Raquel receiving Sigismundo as a newborn son as she's getting pregnant at that night, receiving her future son, her and Adelino, and they bring flowers, it's really a farewell party, so to say. All of us Brazilians here that moved from here, we probably had our farewell parties, right? And we were just coming here, we would go back. Imagine a farewell party in the spiritual world. So Raquel receives Sigismundo from her grandmother, and light illuminates all of them, especially the couple, as they prepare for the new incarnation and to receive an enemy from the past and to rescue through the family our task of readjusting and receiving and recovery. So, of course, the team of constructors work in Raquel's bodies as she was sleeping, as they prepare choosing the correct spermatozoid and to reunite with the ovulus, so you have the proper match to have Sigismundo incarnate. So André Luiz and Alexandre leave, and they were going to come back in the evening before Sigismundo was reborn to provide assistance to the mother in the reincarnation, the moment of reincarnation as Sigismundo was coming back to the spiritual world. During the first 7 years, Herculano, which is the close friend of Sigismundo, who is going to be his spiritual guide, will be there helping and assisting Sigismundo closely, and then he continues through Sigismundo's life as his spiritual guide or guardian angel, but especially on the first 7 years, we have our spiritual guide very close to us. And then, depending on our choices, we have them close to us or not so close to us if we don't allow them. So, I would like to end with this phrase that true love is not found when one looks at each other, but rather when they all look in the same direction, which is something that we have to think when we think of our families. Are we all looking into the same direction? Do we all have the same goal? The goal of forgiving each other, of working together on our spiritual evolution, on our spiritual progress? What are we doing with our life?